Hello everyone, my name's Nitu and this is my first video here on YouTube. I'm planning on using this channel to go through my various crafting hobbies, mainly knitting, crocheting, spinning, maybe a bit of sewing. I know advice on YouTube is to pick a niche and stick to it. However, I really do flit about from hobby to hobby quite a bit. And the thing I really like about crafting is how once you start learning various crafting skills, they all end up kind of building each other onto each other. And you sort of end up learning a lot more about how things work. Another reason why I really can't pick a hobby to stick to is that I find that each hobby gives me something a little bit special, a little bit different. And that's actually what I wanted to cover today. So today I'm going to go through a list of several of my crafting hobbies, and I'll go through something that I take away from each one. So the first one I wanted to cover is knitting and crocheting. My mom taught me how to crochet when I was a kid, but it didn't really take off for me as a hobby until much later. And it's a similar story with knitting. I learned to knit in university, but it really took off for me as a hobby in lockdown as it did for many people. I've mainly crocheted garments for myself. I'm what you call a bit of a selfish knitter. However, I have made a few baby blankets and little baby items for my friends' kids. So the main reason why I keep on with the knitting habit is that I find that it's a very good way to get myself to sleep. For me now, knitting and crocheting is a bit of a habit. At the end of the night, I like to sort of pick up one of the projects I'm working on and just kind of do a little bit of that. It's quite mindless, and I find that with the routine, it sort of does help me set off to sleep. For that reason, I have been more attracted to sort of simple stockinette stitches or simpler crochet patterns. I know I just said I was a selfish knitter, but I do love that knitting and crocheting for friends is a really good way of showing that you love them and you're thinking about them this entire time. This is my baby blanket that my mom crocheted for me when I was a kid. My mom spent a lot of time doing these stitches, and I think this is sort of an item that I'll treasure for a very long time. And yeah, when I made baby blankets for my friends' kids, I sort of feel like I'm sort of sending them that same kind of love. So something to note about how I knit and crochet is I tend not to really follow strict patterns as such. I tend to, again, this is much easier because I mainly knit and crochet garments for myself. So I always have my own measurements to hand. I can always sort of test how I fit things. And developed a bit of a I've developed a bit of a method that I sort of use and that I've used for a couple of garments now. I think it's slightly sacrilegious. So if I feel like I can bear the consternation of the knitting community, then I might share how I go about making garments for myself. So the next one, which is on a similar note, is sewing. Now, unlike knitting and crochet, I'm much less experienced in sewing. As a teenager, I made myself a few garments. Here's a picture of me, age 17, and I think the photo hides the fact that this top fit me very badly. Like it wasn't symmetrical. It was really difficult to get to basically get the top onto me. But the thing that draws me most to sewing is actually more the finished object. I find that, and I think a lot of people have been commenting on the fact that when you go to the store to look for clothes, the quality of the garments available is just not that great. And even if you can find a good quality garment at a fair, like a decent price, it's hard to find something that fits you well because of the nature of ready-made clothes. Now, I find the sort of economics and the logistics of the clothing industry quite interesting. It's something that I'd be interested in doing a video on if I can bring myself to do the research and sort of if I felt confident enough that I could actually do that I could actually give it some justice because I don't have a any background in that kind of thing. The next hobby, another relatively new one. I started spinning yarn a couple of years ago. For me, the main thing about spinning, like knitting and crocheting, is that it's very meditative. Um, if you're thinking about going into spinning, and I highly recommend it, but it wasn't meditative at first. My first few, or more than few, tries, it is quite frustrating. But once your fingers sort of learn how the yarn feels and how it works, how the wool sort of works, pardon, it, yeah, I can spend a long time doing it and keep that focus. Although I suspect my form is somewhat not great because uh, I spent a lot of time spinning a couple days ago, and I think these are the finger muscles. They're quite sore. I use a drop spindle, so I don't know how people. Oh, on this point, one of the main things I love about spinning is that I feel like it connects me to the past. And I think this is what a lot of spinners find, is that spinning was something that a lot of people spent a huge chunk of their time doing throughout, I mean, like most of human history. But yes, I'm still a beginner in spinning. I've just started. I'm trying to do some fractal spinning, and I'm in the process of applying. I'll see if I can share some of the results of my spinning soon. Now, painting and drawing. The main thing I like about painting and drawing, the main thing I use it for really, is if I'm feeling like an emotion. I like the fact that sort of I can get that emotion on the page. Again, I wouldn't consider myself particularly. I'm not trying to be like self-deprecating for the sake of it, but there's a lot of painting skills that I need to learn. I did make that thing behind me there. And basically, if I were to describe my painting and drawing, it's good enough for me to sort of get what I'm feeling onto the page, which is the main thing I use it for. If I'm feeling like annoyed or angry or particularly joyful, I like sort of pushing the paint around and sort of getting that into sort of a visual format in front of me. I also like that the process of learning how to paint and draw sort of makes me a better observer. um, a big part of drawing and painting is that you have to sort of go past sort of seeing objects as representational things, as like you have to stop seeing a tree as like a tree, and you end up having to, when you're looking at a tree, you kind of have to look at the shapes that you're looking at. You end up not just seeing a tree. Now, it would take a lot more confidence than I currently have to start painting on camera, but I do really like watching videos of people sort of painting. It's sort of soothing, and also you learn. But yeah, I feel like I need to build on my sort of artistic confidence before I felt like I can do that here. But that is something I'm interested in doing. Now, this next hobby isn't strictly speaking a crafting hobby, but I wanted to include this because it's really the thing that I've dedicated the most amount of my life to in terms of hobbies, which is singing in choirs. I've been singing in choirs for 20 years now, since I was a kid. And on that point, one of the main things that I sort of gained from choir is it's the one hobby where I feel like I'm enjoying the fruits of a long period of dedicated, gradual, incremental improvement. The other part that I really like about singing in choirs is that sort of you're in a group, which is great for the social side. But while you're singing, actually, I really enjoy the feeling of sort of being in a group, and not just like I'm an individual in a group, but rather I feel like I am the choir, if that makes sense. It's sort of what I imagine bees feel like, or I guess in I guess more relatable way. I imagine it's sort of similar to how a fan in a sports stadium, or someone in a mob might feel. You sort of lose yourself. The other thing that I really like about singing choir is that it's sort of related to the point I made about reflecting emotions via drawing and painting, but it's sort of the reverse. With drawing and painting, I like that I can sort of get what I'm feeling onto the page. But with singing in choirs, what I really like is that I can sort of feel what the music is feeling. Sort of the emotions are being transferred from the music to me. Singing's also the thing that I do that probably requires the most intense focus. When you're singing, you really can't think about anything that's going on in your life. And because when you're sort of in the middle of singing, the only things you're thinking about are basically what are the next few bars? Where do I breathe? So it just takes up your like so much brain power that you end up just not thinking about anything else. Now, woodworking. This is my newest hobby, and I don't even know if I'd call it that. Last year, my first little woodworking project was this bench that I made for my mum, and I fear I may never top that. I am quite proud of that piece. My subsequent work hasn't been quite as nice, but I do like that. I like sort of being able to, again, that sort of same sort of hand feel of feeling wool, feeling paint. I like that I'm learning to sort of feel how wood works, how wood functions, when you sort of saw it, when you chisel it, and the structure. It's hard. I don't know how to, like, there must be a sort of word for the feeling of materials. I feel like you might call it like, I don't know, hand knowledge. I don't know. The thing I do like about woodworking, again, kind of focusing on the finished object, while the pieces I make have been kind of ugly, at least in my opinion, I do like if I do need a little piece of furniture in a pinch and I need it for cheap, I can cobble together something that will work. I currently on my balcony have sort of a little dining table trellis combo that basically aims to maximize the usage of the space, which it's if you look at it, it's not like I think anyone who properly does woodworking would be like, oh gosh, like that is things aren't flush at all with each other, but it works and it's cheaper than anything I could get anywhere else. I'm actually in the middle of a project that relates to spinning. It's not going so well, but you know, as it says in my channel description, I aim to share both the successes and I wouldn't call it a failure yet, but my not so successes. I'm trying to make a Dodex spinning wheel. I'm finding that, as I mentioned earlier, that spinning with a drop spindle is starting to get quite hard on my hands. And so I can see why a spinning wheel would be useful. And I feel like I can't quite justify the expenditure on a proper spinning wheel yet. So I've been trying to make one of my own, and it's been a fun exercise. My first task was to make the actual wheel. Yeah, it's rather oblong, isn't it? I don't know if this will work as a wheel, whether it'll actually do. But um, hey, I'm we'll see how that goes. And finally, another very new hobby, gardening. I don't have a garden, I have a balcony, but I've been spending this year trying to um, grow plants on there. The thing I really like about gardening so far is that it kind of serves as a useful marker of time, sort of like you sort of have a calendar in a weird way in front of you where it's quite easy to lose track of them weeks and months. But when you have sort of the plants there that are sort of growing and blooming and wilting, you have sort of a useful marker of how much time has passed. So at the moment, my marigolds are sort of coming up. The little saplings are there. And I'm like, oh yeah, I planted the marigolds just over 2 weeks ago now. Again, I'm a super beginner when it comes to gardening, so I don't plan on spending much time on the how-tos and whatnot, but I can see myself sort of just posting little updates of how, especially the tomato plants are doing. I really hope the tomatoes do well. I did mention a few video ideas in the course of this, and if any of them seem particularly interesting to you, please comment down below. I'm hoping to hear from you guys in the comments, and we'll see where this channel takes me.